Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. Today's show is a special edition from the SugarCRM 2025 Analyst Summit in San Diego. Beautiful location. I'm not going to show you that, of course, but nonetheless, beautiful couple of days here. And I'm joined by Jorge Arroyo, who's the SVP of Engineering at SugarCRM. So Jorge, welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, I really appreciate you joining. And, you know, it's been an exciting few days. And so I'm going to try to bring in a few of the things that we've talked about in the summit too. But as you know, I'm going to focus mostly on the AI piece of it, which is, you know, what we do. So anyway, maybe it'd start by just giving us a little introduction, kind of what you do, how you got here, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I'm the Senior Vice President of Engineering at Sugar. I've been running engineering for 7 years. And in my role, I oversee all the technology implementations for Sugar, ensuring that our architecture, AI capabilities, and infrastructure all aligns with the vision for the company.
Yeah, great. So we're talking to the right person. And last year in London, I sat down with your boss for a while, so that was a lot of fun, but I'm really glad that this time, I mean, we'll miss Zach, of course, but it's good that you're able to join. And, you know, at that London Summit, I got a pretty good picture of where you guys were going. But the one thing that, well, a couple of things have changed, of course, but one of the biggest things is new CEO and a new kind of focus. Mm-hmm. I won't call it completely a strategy because you already were focused on manufacturing, distribution, wholesale, et cetera. But now, instead of really trying to be everything to everybody, you're really focusing on Sugar's core strength of sales. So as we go through this, I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on the sales use of the tools. Just without, you know, I don't want to leave out the fact that you have really good, you know, coverage and service for certain things like summarization, and then you also have case management, and then you also have some in marketing. But let's focus mostly on sales. Sure. So first, it's probably a good thing to do is just to start us with, what have you guys done since London that, you know, just as an overview of AI, what have you done in the product?
Yeah. So we have continued working with the, I believe it was 6 pillars that Zach talked to you.
Yep.
On the prediction side, we have continued working on predictive analytics in order to help, for example, with churn, forecast accuracy, in addition to the propensity to close and things like that helps our sellers be more effective. In the summarization area, we have introduced summarization for opportunities, for cases, and we're just about to come out with the account summarization. And you know, those summarizations is more than just the record. It's really gathering the data around the account. What are the emails, the key contacts, and gathering all that information, sending it to the GAI machine, and then bringing it back. In the advice, we are giving recommendations and best actions. So it's not just a summary. We're taking all that information. What's the best action that you should be taking here? On ACT is how do we get workflows to adapt to the work the work that they're doing. Assist is giving opportunities that might not be relevant to that seller by looking at information from the ERP system. And then create is we're working on creating content. So it's not just you should send an email, but here's a recommendation of what that email.
Yeah. So you're actually giving them the whole, like, here's the outline of what you could do and what you could, you know. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, one of the examples you gave in your presentation yesterday that I thought was really helpful to help people understand the power of summarization. Because I think you're right. I think a lot of people think of it as like, oh, yeah, okay, it summarizes stuff. I use it to summarize stuff all the time, right? But there's actually a real important use case from your perspective, how you get value out of it, that I think goes across the whole business.
Yeah, so again, it is being able to, at a moment's notice, somebody says, hey, I need you to go talk to this account, which happens to me quite often. And in the past, I had to go through all these records trying to guess which ones are the important ones, because there is a sea of information there, right? I don't have to do that anymore. Not only would it give me, it picks the relevant bits that I need to be looking at, and it gives me what are the pain points that they're doing? What are we trying to accomplish here? And what should be the next steps? So all of a sudden, I'm completely aligned with that salesperson that is bringing me in at a moment's notice and doesn't have time to brief me.
Right. So rather than having to jump around through all these disconnected bits of information that we would normally see in a sales system, you get everything in a way that's easy to consume, that preps you for whatever it is they need. You're talking to a prospect or whatever, right? Yeah. So that, to me, that really can, really help kind of bring together the idea that summarization is a powerful tool that if you think about it from a sales guy perspective, I'm getting ready to go into a meeting. What did we talk about last time? I better go, those kinds of things. And obviously Zoom meetings you could include, and lots of good stuff there. So one of the big things that we've always had an issue with in CRM, particularly Salesforce automation, which focus on the sales guy, is getting the sales team to use it. So how are you thinking about this from a product perspective? How do you make this something that the sales guy really does want to use, that it's a value to him or her?
That's spot on. We tend to think overly think about just the user experience, but nobody has closed a deal by entering data into a CRM system.
No.
The question is, what are the things that you can do that make my life easier? And sometimes it's very subtle. It can be, if I have all this information that my boss can consume, I no longer have to sit down with my boss to tell him what I did last week. Right? So all of a sudden, not having to do that and focusing the conversations around what's relevant for me to close business, that's value add. When I am able to quickly gather information, not just about what I am doing, because I know what I'm doing. I don't need to go to zero.
Right.
What else is happening? These cases are happening. The sentiment is negative.
Yeah.
Now that's a subtlety that I need to know before I engage in that conversation. So those bits that I couldn't find out myself, that's what I think adds value.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other thing that I heard in that, and I think you guys are moving down this path, is the other end of it. How do I get the data in there? Because in the past, it didn't get in there, let's be honest.
Right.
Or it only the parts that I wanted you to see got in there.
Yeah. Now, and that aligns in Zach's vision when he is driving where are we going in the future. It's not about how to enter information, it's how not to enter.
Not to enter, yeah,
So
exactly.
you already had let's say a Slack conversation that captures what the different team members are doing around. I don't want to summarize. I can just click it one time and it goes right into the CRM. Or capturing emails right from your inbox. Go to where things are. Zoom ended. It will automatically take the transcript and put it in the CRM system. So those are the kinds of things. Eliminate the need to enter data. That adds value because you have more time. At the same time, it does capture the information at a more accurate place.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, the easier we make it and the less extra administrative burden we put on. There's like I remember some stat that I saw last year is like, I don't know, 65% of the salesperson's time's administrative or something like that, which is, of course, not what we pay them for. So giving them the capability to focus is much better. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about it from the customer experience perspective, because I know that is something that you guys think a lot about when you're putting this together. What value has AI that you've built into the system? What has that added from an end user, a customer perspective?
Well, I was just talking to a customer here. I believe you might have heard in speaking. Is they were having a terrible adoption problem in their CRM, and all of a sudden the AI summaries turned the whole thing around because they could get that value.
Right.
That's the kind of exciting stories that we're hearing. Being able to connect again your inbox to your CRM system, and I can have all that information and get value out of it, because there's 10,000 emails on a CRM system. How many people are going to read them? But there is a lot of insight to be gained from that. And that's where AI is really unlocking the value of the unstructured data, which to me is the golden nugget of relationship management.
Yeah, I mean, that is the part that really helps us understand, which is the point of trying to be in there with that prospect, right, to understand them. So that's an amazing addition to your toolbox if you have that capability.
Absolutely. Customers ask about 360 view of the customer. And sometimes I cringe when I hear that, because you can have all the data in one place and it becomes overwhelming. And the point is not just to capture every little bit and put in there for nobody to look at, is to capture that data and get value out of it. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's, I mean, there's been tons of buzz around AI and CRM over the last 2 or 3 years at least. And I mean, honestly, we know it was in there way before that too, but we didn't talk about it that much. But there's certainly been a lot of buzz, and maybe some hype too, I don't know, but definitely some buzz, right? So your approach, and I sort of think of this like, remember the old Intel Inside stickers on your laptops? I sort of think of that as the way you guys have approached this, is it's AI inside, right? So you're not spending all your time talking about the AI. What you're talking about is the use case and how the value is created, right? So how does that set you apart from your competitors?
So we are very intentional about how we do AI implementations. We are not asking anybody to enter a prompt. Prompt engineering is actually a little bit more complicated than something people think. So what we're trying to do is understand the workflow you're in, and understand what's the right context you're going to send that LLM and the prompt that goes with it. Because to get high quality results, you have to be very thoughtful about how you do it. And again, when we think of it, and I think I went through it yesterday, we do privacy by design, governance by design, and we're not just taking information and sending it to an LLM. We're grounding the information, we're masking the information to ensure that none of the PII data goes into the LLM, zero trust model, and then governance of those models. These are things that CIOs are really grappling with, especially as this is evolving so quickly. They don't want to lose control of the data. So we are ensuring that we can give them very empirical information about what's happening to your data, what's going and what's not going.
I mean, that's actually, I mean, obviously one of the concerns that you hear a lot about in the press and tech press and that sort of thing. And I thought this, and you had to actually, I had to ask Zach about this last year because I know we talked about it some, but I think it's important to bring this out again because you mentioned masking, but I think that's one of the areas, especially from a compliance and regulatory perspective, that is unique. And I don't, I talk to a lot of vendors. I don't know of another company that's approached it the same way. So I think it's really powerful. Could you tell us a little bit more about how masking works?
So what we do, and again, it's the zero trust model that we follow. Once we gather all the information from all the different records, and we're going to send it to the LLM, we have a local LLM, so the data hasn't left, that identifies all the PII data that is in there, and basically replaces names, emails, addresses, things like that, with non-descriptive ones. So, you can go from Jorge Arroyo to maybe Darth Vader.
Right.
Is going to go there. And it really has
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah. It has no, it makes no difference to what it is going to bring back.
Right. Because the other information's the point, right? It's the context.
That's correct. And then we have an audit layer that basically ensures what went there, what came back, and how to ensure the quality and the governance.
Yeah, and that's actually unique. And I know I asked you this question yesterday about RAG and about vector databases, but I think what I missed there was what you just said, which I go like, oh yeah, okay, that's why, is the fact that you have a local LLM that is holding all this, it's trained on all this information that you're constantly generating in the system, which then feeds the context into the prompt that goes into that bigger public-facing LLM.
Exactly.
And that's how it actually stripped it out. That makes a lot more sense than I did last year when I didn't understand that piece of it. So thank you.
Sure.
So it's not easy implementing these systems, particularly around data, but there's other challenges too. I mean, what are your customers telling you? What kind of challenges are they facing with this, and how do they kind of work through that to make it function for them?
Well, so for our customers, if you're dealing with models and stuff like that, that's their concern. They don't have data scientists. They don't have anything like that.
Right.
We don't expose that to them. Right. So then it becomes a question about trust.
Right.
And being transparent. So one of the things that we do, especially with predictive type of AI, is giving you the reasons why that prediction was done. So we're very transparent. When you get the prediction, you can click and say, okay, here are the factors that affected that.
Yeah.
So that is all part of the trust. It's trust in the security, trust in the privacy of that information, and trust that I can understand what that is. There's still a lot of skepticism.
There is.
I think GAI, one of the things is it just works, and people are able to trust it.
Yeah.
But predictive analytics still suffers from I think I know better.
Yeah.
And then when you can see exactly why that prediction was done, you go, oh, I didn't realize.
Well, which is really interesting because that's much older in the systems than the generative AI pieces that we deal with now. So, but it makes sense. I mean, trust, especially when you're telling me something I should do, but I got 40 years experience. I know better than that. That can't be right. I mean, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. And then as the customers have used this, what kind of feedback are you getting? And we had a couple here that we got to talk to, which were great. Actually, really helped us understand how they're using the tools. But what kind of feedback do you get on the implementation?
It has been overwhelmingly positive. It has been a great surprise that we knew it was going to add value. I have been surprised of how many times I've heard this is changing the adoption equation in my company. And that tells me that what they're trying to say is people actually are finding stuff that I couldn't otherwise. And
so they're getting value out of the system.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. One of the features that I heard a couple of people mention, I know you probably talked about it, and a few other, Paul talked about it, I think, is this idea of focus toward. And I think that's a really unique way to think of it, because when we think of predictions, we tend to think of them in that this is the machine guessing what's going to happen kind of a thing. But what this is subtler in my brain. It goes, okay, if you're telling me I should focus towards these things in this account, then I get that. So this is my activity list or task list or whatever. So how does that work?
So what we're talking about here is when you're doing things like summarizing, that's all well and good. But what are the things you should be focusing on? What do we see from all these interactions, the pain points are? And it starts getting people grounded towards the areas of that relationship that need to be addressed, right? And that's where you get into cases are over here, and the account is having these opportunities, and hey, we just didn't close on this thing.
Right.
So what are the things that we should be focusing on to really move that relationship forward?
That's really powerful. That makes sense, especially from a sales guy, right? That's what I need to know. How do I keep the deal moving? Right? So one of this year's hot topics is agentic AI, and there's a lot of confusion around what it is. But the way I think of it. And I think somebody in the meeting yesterday said, "Oh, there's no standard definition." I don't agree with that, but because I think there is a definition, and we've been studying and writing research for a while. But how are you thinking of agentic going forward? How do you is there autonomous action that you're thinking about, or that you already have in the product as we move forward?
That's something that we're working with. We don't have it in the product yet. I think that's one that you also have to be careful with. There are some processes that are well suited for it.
Right.
And you still need to think about where are the guardrails, and how do you handle override.
Yep.
In the whole question of trust, that one needs another level of trust.
It does need that's fair.
And so I think the technology is there. It'd be interesting to see how adopted it is.
Yeah.
But it's just something that we're looking at, especially in the context of workflows and customer journeys.
Yep.
There are a lot of things in customer journeys. Like, I know for sure you're going to send this email.
Right.
And you already have a template, right? Let me do it for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That type of thing. So to me, that's a little bit farther out, but it's something that we have to start looking at now and have been.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think when I talk to customers about what they're doing, a lot of them are pilots right now, or they're doing a really controlled release around some specific function or whatever, right? But it is powerful.
It is very powerful. And so our approach is, and this is the way we have approached all of our AI, is a very small pilot. Work with the customer, see how it's working with their context, learn from it, and then move. And then at the point that we feel that it's ready, that's where we make it available.
That makes sense, and certainly from a customer perspective, that builds a lot more trust in the process. The human in the loop argument is going to be something that we're going to deal with for a while.
That's right.
It's, how much of that, and when do I trust it to go off and do its own thing, and can it arrange my flight schedule and actually get me a ticket, and it's the right one, and things like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's talk a little bit about roadmap and kind of the vision for where you're going. And you showed us some of the roadmap yesterday, but I know that your plan goes beyond what we saw. So how are you thinking about AI as you go forward? What are you looking at? Where are the keys that you think will really add value through this next few releases?
Yeah. So as we look at the future, we believe AI is going to be what brings it all together. I think I made a comment yesterday about the structured data we have been using. That helps you run the business. The unstructured data is what helps you drive the relationship.
Yeah.
And when you can blend the power of GAI that brings reasoning out of that non-structured data, and you start driving business processes to enable one of the key areas you heard yesterday is intelligent account management. And intelligent account management is not just what we're doing or what could we be doing, right? Bringing in ERP data, bringing in the CRM data, bringing all other data sources, and identifying white space, opportunities that you might not have, real prospects that you might not. So I think that it's finally, AI is finally bringing these two great pieces of information, the structure and the structure, in order to drive business processes more efficiently and in areas that you might not have thought about before.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point about integration. And I know a lot of companies are struggling with the idea that they've have all these different systems and all the data siloed, and now how do you get that in a way that's actionable? And I know the hardest data to collect a lot of times is unstructured, right? I mean, it's the information you pull from the prospect so you can start to build that understanding and trust. And yet, how do you make that into something that's actionable? It's always been a difficulty.
Right. And I think, it's interesting because the biggest issue with structured data is quality.
Yeah.
Right? That seller has got 20 fields that
Yep.
they have to fill, and they're just picking the first option. They're just, I want to move on, right? In unstructured data, the biggest problem that you're trying to solve is capturing it, right? And then once you have captured, associate it appropriately.
Yeah.
So those are problems that we're looking to do in order to have high quality data and capture the data that is very relevant. I don't want the summary.
Yeah.
I want it from the source because it will have a lot more granular information that is important.
Really nuggets in there that I could use that I wouldn't have access to.
And we don't think it's important to an LLM. They can pick up those cells.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the more the better.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's actually one of the biggest values, right? Is it's having the capability to bring things out that you didn't understand, that you wanted to understand, as you're kind of thinking through the how do I approach this account? How do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that we're looking very much is these insights. The way they're working right now is, I want to see the summary. But we want to detect them and alert you about it. Sentiment is going down in this account. This case, it should be escalated. The words in this email are alarming. So instead of me having to go find out, it alerting you, hey, this deal, if you do this, will close.
Yeah.
We've seen this pattern before. So becoming insights that come to you versus insights you
That I'm trying to pull out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and it's this idea of focusing towards certain things, and there's certain actions you can do. I mean, that's a lot of value because it is something that's not intuitive to a human when you're looking at that, because the data, there's just too much data, right? And it's scattered everywhere. And,
Yeah, and the other key part of that that you mentioned, I have sellers that have 40 years of experience.
Yeah.
They'll pick up a lot of this, but guess what? There is a whole turnover happening, and you're trying to bring in new sellers.
Yep.
How do I make those new sellers as productive as the people that have been in the business for a while?
Yeah.
That is a challenge that everybody's dealing
Yeah.
with, and I think that the CRM system, with having this technology, can help that.
Yeah, the idea of onboarding. I think last year I saw a survey that said it takes about 6 months to hire a new salesperson. It takes about 9 months to get them productive, and the average tenure is about 18 months. So you're literally getting 9 months of productivity out of.
Which is not good.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So that's a big risk. So if you can make onboarding scalable, more scalable, yeah.
And if you want to perform as an organization with consistency and predictability, you need to bring those sellers in right off the bat.
Yeah, yeah, and I assume, and I heard this from a couple of your customers yesterday, that our sales force is aging. They're aging out of the workforce, so we're having to bring in people that have no experience or very, very little experience, and try to get them up to speed. And one of the guys, I don't know, some insane number of products. They had like 160,000. Yeah, I know. I was like,
How do you learn?
that must be tough. Like,
That's right.
okay, on a page 148. No. Anyway, yeah, that's. So that actually would be a big benefit to the overall sales management team. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so in our sales side solution, for example, we bring in all the purchase history from the ERP system, and we create these product affinities.
Right.
So now you're not dealing with 160,000, you're dealing with these classes, and it automatically goes in. You don't have to do anything. It identifies this is what's been sold, this is what should go with it, And at the very least, you get the conversation, right? And those are opportunities that you can come in. It takes experience to find that out because that's not encoded in the product catalog, right? You get pre-rec, post-recs, but affinity is a completely different thing. So those AI models that create that affinity, and this is what is actually happening, not what some analyst is entering in there. This is the reality.
Right. All right, so I'm going to step back. I want to take a slightly different tack because this is just a topic that I've been talking about a lot and trying to think about, and so I'm curious what you think about it too. And actually, I think some of the stuff came out a little bit yesterday when you're talking to the group. Is that I believe, and the more I look at it, the more I believe that that this whole AI shift is really starting to redefine the user experience inside of an application. I mean, it sort of redefines how we interact with the application. I mean, it's more natural. We could use voice and natural language and that sort of thing. So what do you think about that? I mean, is this really disruptive from an enterprise application perspective? And is it really changing the way that we can interact with the software?
I think it does. Hearing the word disruptive, and maybe I have too much of an engineer's mind. Disruptive.
Yeah, it's probably.
I don't know if it is disruptive as it is finally we're going to be able to get the value that we have been hoping for.
Yeah.
The systems are finally going to move from systems of inspection to systems of value.
Yeah.
And that's what AI is unleashing. I don't think we're going to replace sellers with AI. We're just going to make it more productive.
Yeah.
We're going to shorten that onboarding time. We are going to be able to give you alerts on things that you need to pay attention to, that you're on the road, you don't know what else is going. As a seller, especially in the manufacturing space, you're not just a seller, you're also the CSM for that. And when there's a problem, they're going to drag you in. Wouldn't you want to know about it before it actually happens? So I think the experience is going to change for us to be able to do more efficiently.
I mean, in my mind, of course, this is the analyst talking. It's the disruption. Of course, disruption's good from an analyst perspective, right? But it sounds like what you just said is the disruption is it actually really works.
Exactly right.
and that is a disruption in some cases, I think.
No, and the reason why I say disruption is sometimes it's like there is a revolutionary change, and that is, I think that the user experiences are going to be more geared to make you productive. Versus just entering data.
Yeah. Well, one of the other areas that you mentioned journey mapping and journeys, and I've always been kind of I bristle a little bit at the term map because when I think of map, it's very static. It's very go from here to there, and that's not the way people think. It's not the way they buy. So how are you guys thinking about dynamic journeys and personalization?
That is definitely an area Zach has been talking about a lot. Think about what we just talked about, taking all the products and what actually happened and creating the affinity map, right? We'll take journeys, what actually happened, and you can take the time-based data that we have, understanding all the activities that are happening, and taking these salient points and making a journey out of it, right? Adapted to that customer.
Yeah.
Because we follow MEDIC, so you do this and you do that, but not everybody fits that mold. The methodology is there. How do I adapt it to this particular deal?
Yeah, I mean, it is it's a dynamic change environment where behaviors and actions indicate additional activities and interactions you could do. That's really powerful, but it's not something we've been able to do very well,
right?
At all in some cases.
And I do think that AI is going to change that.
Yeah, that to me, that's one of the most exciting things. If I could have a system that's interactive to the point of predicting behavioral outcomes, that's super powerful from a sales perspective.
That's right. And look, all these things are pattern matching.
Yeah.
Right. what does success look like?
Yeah.
That's the question we should be
Yeah.
looking at.
Yeah.
How do I codify all the experience that you have acquired over the years? And you can sit down and write a book, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
we can gather it from your actual activities. It's kind of like following you for a year and then writing the book.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
the book is the new journeys that we have identified.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think that's a little. When I feel like when we say that Gen AI is pattern matching, most people go like, well, "Why is that useful? Like that doesn't sound useful at all." But I think that once you use it for a while, what you start to see is it's pattern matching in a way that I never thought you could pattern match. Like.
Well, our lives are all patterns, right?
They are,
I mean,
yeah,
I think
they
you
are.
wake up in your morning,
Yeah,
you take
yeah,
drink your cup of coffee and all that.
Yep.
And those are the kinds of things that we as humans are creatures of habit. And we don't like to think about it, but we're fairly predictable.
Yeah, we are.
Once you identify what those key elements of the patterns are.
Yep. Yep. Super. Well, really good conversation, Jorge. I appreciate you joining today.
It's been my pleasure.
I probably should cut us off at this point, but there's so much interesting stuff we could go into. But before I let you go, the one thing I like to get at the end is, could you recommend somebody for the audience, a thought leader, an author, somebody that you think would be beneficial for them to check out, to follow, read, whatever?
Yeah, I think for us, and I know Zach very much is being influenced by Andrew Ng.
Yeah.
And Andrew, with his practical AI deployments, data-centric AI, and responsible AI.
Yep.
I know that his work and he's published quite a bit of really interesting information about how we take advantage of this.
Yeah, he has a great newsletter. I really look forward to that when I get that. Great recommendation. Thank you very much. And thanks for joining. And again, that's all the time we have today. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arionresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arionresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arion Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.